everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Myah and this is Inspired by Myah. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this ruched dress, which I found on a lot of online shopping websites, and I thought I'm going to recreate it. So I did a vote on my Instagram to ask, I already did my intro for this. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Myah and this is Inspired by Myah. So today I'm going to be making this ruched bodycon dress with like a button-up center front, and I think it looks so good. But so I did a interactive story on my Instagram where I asked you guys to pick a color fabric I should use. So it was out of white, blue and pink, and pink one. So I'm going to be making it in this fabric. It's just a really stretchy, it's got textured side and a smooth side, but I'm going to use the textured side. Let me show you the pattern pieces. So here are all my pattern pieces. I've got the front of the dress, back of the dress, the collar and the button stand, the placket for the front of the dress. Yeah, so the front of the dress piece looks really crazy, it's really curvy, but that's because I had to slash and spread the pattern so that can get the ruching. So when it all gets ruched, it will become straight again. These plackets are going to get attached onto the center front on both sides. So this side's going to be the buttonhole and this side's going to be the buttons. I interfaced the placket because when we're doing the buttonholes, we need it to be stable, because essentially it's embroidering and you can't really embroider on stretchy fabric without it rippling. So this stops it from being stretchy. I also did the same to the collar. So I've got the collar stand and the collar, and I've interfaced one of the collars and one of the collar stands. And with the back of the dress, it's just a simple dress silhouette, so it'll just stretch around the back of my body, I guess. But yeah, that's all the pattern pieces. So I'm just going to start to go in depth on the collar. So to start assembling the collar, I'm just going to take it right sides facing together and sew a straight stitch all around the outside edges, but I'm going to leave this bit open. Once I finish sewing the collar, I trim the corners so that they're nice and sharp when we turn it out. And also you want to grade the seam allowance, so I'm only cutting one side of the seam allowance down to about halfway, which reduces the bulk. Then I just flip the collar right sides out and use scissors to push the corners out, but be careful not to make a hole in your fabric. Then I just went ahead and ironed the collar flat. Next you want to take the collar stand with the interfacing right sides facing up and place the collar with the interfacing side on top. Then put the other collar stand right sides facing down so that the collar is trapped in between. Then stitch all around the top. So I finished sewing the collar up, and I actually did have a bit of difficulty with it because one of the fabric pieces was stretchy and the other wasn't. And I started sewing with the stretchy side and it was just making the fabric ripple up, and you can still see it a bit. But what I had to do was sew it from the interfacing side because it was just a bit more stable. But you can combat this if you have a walking foot, but I don't, I need to invest in one. So but yeah, that's done. So I'm gonna flip it. This is what your collar should look like. Just push out the edges. And again, we're going to do the grading on the seams. So I'm just going to cut down the interfaced seam allowance to about halfway. Now I'm just going to go and give this an iron so that everything lays flat. So just iron the collar now, and this is what it looks like on both sides. So now we can move on to sewing up the main bodice. So to start sewing the dress, we need to attach the halter neck bit. So I put the dress pieces right sides facing at the neck and did a stitch. You can use your overlocker to do this, but if you don't have one, you can use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Next I took the back of the dress and attached it to the side seams of the front right sides facing. Now that the dress is assembled, we need to gather the front. To do this, I just cut a piece of elastic the same length as the button plackets twice, and then I stretched and sewed the elastic to the front of the dress. But try and make sure that you stretch the elastic evenly along the front of the dress so that the gathers are even. After I finished sewing the elastic on, I also overlocked the bottom of my dress and inside the halter neck area, but I left the neck area where the collar will be attached to because it would create unnecessary bulk. Now we can move on to the placket. So I took one of the plackets, right sides facing the ruched side of the dress, and sewed it together with a straight stitch. I already have markings on my plackets to indicate where my buttonholes need to be, so I placed that side on the right side of my dress since that's the side it's usually on for women's clothing. So here I finished adding both sides of the plackets on, but I had one slight problem because the placket was just a little bit shorter than the dress, so I had to make the length of the dress a bit shorter to match up with the length of the placket, so I had to overlock the bottom of the dress again. I also went ahead and overlocked the sides of the plackets. After I finished overlocking, I folded the placket on top of itself, right sides facing, and sewed a small stitch at the bottom of the dress so that we get a nice boxed corner. Then I trimmed the seam allowance and turned it right sides out. So now we can fold the rest of the bottom of the dress up and hem it down. So I just hemmed the bottom of the dress, but obviously because it's stretchy fabric it starts to pucker a bit, but I'm hoping that when I give it an iron it'll just lay flat. So now we've only got three steps left to the dress, so I need to fold the placket in and I need to hem the back around the neck area, and then we need to add the collar. But the first thing I'm going to do is the placket. So all I'm going to do is fold the placket over onto the stitch line, just a bit over the stitch line I'd say, and then pin it in place. So now you can either do a top stitch on all of it, or you can do a stitch in a ditch. So to do that I just slightly stretch this and try and sew right in the middle of that seam, but obviously do whatever's easiest for you. So now we can move on to putting the collar onto the neck. So I pinned the one side of the collar stand to the neck, right sides facing, and then did a straight stitch. Once I finished that seam, I needed to trim down the top of the placket so that it's not too thick underneath the collar. Then I went ahead and folded the other side of the collar stand in and pinned it down. When I did this, I pinned it just over the seam line. Now the next stitch is going to complete the collar, and there's different ways you can do it. So you can do a top stitch, stitch in a ditch, or finish it by hand. I ended up finishing it by hand mostly and did a little bit on the machine because my fabric was a bit tricky to work with. To be honest, stretchy fabrics in general can be sometimes. But anyway, I got it finished after letting the day pass me by because my motivation literally hit the floor. I ended up top stitching the label on by machine because I actually made the halter neck back shorter, so you can't really see it at the neck back anymore. I actually forgot to record this bit, so sorry about that guys. After that was done, I moved on to hemming the halter neck and back. I just used a 1.5cm seam allowance for this. Next it was the final step, which was adding the buttonholes and buttons, one of the most scariest bits because the buttonholes could end the game if it doesn't work. So I did some samples on a spare piece of the same fabric to test and didn't start on the dress until I was happy with how they came out. So once the scary bit was done, I just pinned the front of the dress closed through the center of the buttonholes all the way down the dress, and then used a marker to mark the middle of the holes so that I know where to put the buttons. Then I put my buttons on using the sewing machine instead of by hand, and I did it without snapping the buttons in half like in my patchwork jean video. And then once I finished adding the buttons on, the dress was finally complete after nearly a month guys. So here's the final reveal. Thank you for watching this video, especially if you've made it this far. I really appreciate it because a lot of time and effort goes into making these videos. I'm gonna give my thoughts on it. Like, I do like the dress, but for me it's just a little bit too short, and which is obviously something that I could have controlled, but I kind of messed up on that end. Otherwise, it is a normal length dress, but I'm a bit on the tall side. Like, I have long legs, so when I put a dress on, it looks really short on me. So for that reason, I'm considering selling the dress. So I might list it on my Depop page, so if you want to buy the dress, then I'll put my link to my Depop in the description box down below. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the content and learned something from this. And if you like the dress, please leave a comment down below. If you like the video, please like it. And if you like my channel, please subscribe. Other than that, please follow my social medias, my Instagram and my TikTok. I'm a bit more active on Instagram than I am on TikTok, but I'm trying, you know, one day I'll get there. But please do follow me on them, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Please turn on the notification bell as well. I upload every month, but with my current work situation changing, that could change and it could be more frequent possibly. So we'll see. But I do hope that you guys are enjoying the videos that are being released. And also, if you have any ideas of what you want me to make next, please leave them in the comments down below. Other than that, I guess that's it, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.